Hello, yeah, so I'm back again. I want to talk about Bellator. So I did this video yesterday and it didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. There was a point that I missed and a point I want to make now. So Chael Sonnen will fight Wanderlei Silva on the Bellator pay-per-view in June. And a lot of people are like, well, you've got two fighters that are not exactly in their peak or prime of their careers right now headlining a pay-per-view. And what does that really say? Where's the opportunity for the other people there? And I thought about this for a long time. I had lots of different ideas. One thing I want to say is it's good to see Bellator getting headlines, and not for the wrong reasons. It's good to see Bellator growing as a promotion. It's good to see them taking some calculated risks. I knew the moment they signed for Stefan Bonner, and sorry, I've just seen that ginger guy with flip-flops again. I know the moment they I'll show you him one day. I know the moment that they signed Bonner and Ortiz that we were going to see more things like this. And then we got Kimbo and Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie, and then Kimbo and Dada. I knew what this was about, really. These were the special attractions to generate a big audience and to also, in a way, showcase other fighters. And I see the same thing with Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva. But obviously it's a risk because Bellator have only ever been on pay-per-view once, to the best of my knowledge. And they did okay for Bellator. But now they have Chael Sonnen, who is a brilliant salesman, to say the least. Great salesman, very controversial. You never know when he's being himself or he's working you. He kind of lures you in a little bit and then he catches you off. But you know Chael's a piece of work. And he gets a lot of attention. And he's revisiting his feud with Wanderlei Silva, and a lot of people are like, well, what does this really mean for the purity of the sport? And no, in terms of rankings and things like that, it doesn't really matter. But I think it's a smart move. And yesterday I just talked about how it was going to generate money and attention and eyeballs and things that often get understated by a lot of fighters these days, where they kind of just say it and gloss over it without really realizing the impact that that has. Because to me, the bigger your audience, the bigger your paycheck down the line. And one thing that fighters are complaining about these days, especially in the UFC, is we're not getting paid enough. We need to be paid more. We need to, our salary needs to reflect what we're doing. And the sponsors and all of that, we want more money. We want a bigger piece of the pie. And in an opportunity like Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva, where the audience, could be the biggest audience they ever perform in front of, there's an opportunity there. And the point that I missed when I did this video yesterday is the point I want to make now. So in this buy or sell video, I'm going to compare Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva for Bellator to Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz in the UFC. Now that sounds absolutely ridiculous, I know. Ken Shamrock peaked in the late 90s and then went to wrestling and then came back into MMA. He had that great fight with Don Fry. Then he went to the UFC and just got battered in a one-sided bout with Tito Ortiz. That's what we remember. What we don't touch on and what is not acknowledged enough is that was the start of something for the UFC. Now, everybody likes to say the Ultimate Fighter, and it was a good thing for the UFC. But momentum has to start from somewhere. And in my belief, that momentum started when Ken and Tito fought each other. Of course, we know the backstory. They had that famous feud. Ortiz beat Guy Mezger and then flipped off Ken Shamrock. That was quite a big thing. Then Ken eventually goes back to MMA. Then they signed the fight with Tito Ortiz. And it was one of the first times in the dark ages of the UFC where the UFC was getting headlines. And I remember it because it was in the same year as Lewis Tyson. And whilst it wasn't getting the same kind of headlines that that fight was getting, I did see that circulating a lot on internet message boards, internet pop-ups. It was out there. It was a very well-known fight. Even pro wrestling people were talking about this one, and I know the pro wrestling audience went over to see that one. It was a very big fight, and it actually showed that the UFC could be something again, and it could be great again, and it really helped the company at that point. Then we fast forward to Ken and Tito number 2, right? Ken and Tito number 2. Now, by this point, everyone has pretty much said that Ken is done. Alright, he won one fight against Kimo Leopardo. Other than that, I think he got knocked out by Rich Franklin. He was just getting dropped all the time and beaten in one-sided fights. But then they had The Ultimate Fighter Season 3. Now, obviously, Season 1 was very successful. Season 2 was very successful. Season 3. Season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter was Ken and Tito. And despite the fact that we know it's a foregone conclusion, we all still watched. And I swear to God, the ratings were very favourable for that season in particular. And then they had the actual fight. And I think the first one was on... It was either on pay-per-view or on TV. But he done a very, very, very good number. Because of this war of words. It was a special attraction. It wasn't about the purity of the sport. It was about a grudge match, and it was marketed in such a way. And you had two big, strong personalities that would go back and forth and have altercations and pull-aparts. And it was very successful. As hokey as it sounds to a lot of people now, it was very successful. Why? Because I think the UFC did one of their highest television ratings when they fought, and I know that the gate was very good, and I believe that when they fought on pay-per-view that time as well, it did very, very, very well. Now people are saying, well, where are you going with this? I can't really see where you're going with this. Well, think about this. That was a large audience for the UFC at the time, right? You had Ortiz and Ken, everybody was watching that. You had a lot of prospects in the Ultimate Fighter at the time. Who grew or who benefited from that? None other than Michael Bisping, because Michael Bisping was created out of that situation. Because you think about it, Ken and Tito, big audience, going back and forth. Michael Bisping is the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, and look what he became. I don't think things would have happened in the same way for Michael had he not had that opportunity in front of a large audience with Tito and Ken at the forefront, because there was a ripple effect from that. And Michael Bisping's name grew. And then Michael Bisping started getting some fights, not main events right away, but mid-level fights on the mid-card that had some importance that people were watching. Bisping was starting to appear everywhere. He was a very, prominent character as he was coming up. And it led to main events, and it made him a star within the UFC. It led to things like, for God's sakes, I can't believe I'm pulling this out here. It led to a Michael Bisping action figure. There was a ripple effect from this. And I'm saying that in a way, Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva to Bellator is what Ortiz and Ken Shamrock was to the UFC. And I do think that there are fighters that can benefit from this. Of course, you can roll your eyes. Chael's weird, he's crazy. Wanderlei's past his prime and runs from USADA, runs out the back window and all of that. But the point is, if this is a big audience, you've also got Fedor and Mitirone. But the fact is, with a big audience like that, people can benefit from that. Douglas Lima can benefit from that. James Gallagher, who's fighting on the prelims, who I think trains at the same camp as Conor McGregor, can benefit from that. You have Lorenz Larkin, who can benefit from that. Fighters, or he's been in the UFC already, but there's a lot of fighters who don't have that name that can benefit from the exposure from a Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva fight. And that's why I buy into this, in the sense that I think it's good for business. And if it's good for business, it's good for the fighters. And if it's good for the fighters, it's good for us, because we get more options. Because, to be honest with you, I want to see I miss the days when there was UFC, Pride, Strikeforce, WEC, then you had the Elite XC, and you had all those other promotions. I miss those days, and I would like to see them come back. The UFC, in a way, monopolised the MMA world when they kept buying out all the promotions, in the same way that the WWF did in the late 90s to the 2000s. I would like to see MMA as a whole grow, not just get the one brand. And I do feel like the Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva fight is an important step for that to happen. Anyways, I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to wrap this one up because I don't have a lot of time. Hopefully I got my point across this time. Let me know how you feel about that. Are you actually going to be watching this Bellator pay-per-view? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel. Hit that like button down below. Hit the subscribe button too. Let me, hit the subscribe button. But let me know how you feel about that. I'm going to stop. And I think I've gone over the 10 minutes. Anyways, guys, take care and peace.